Welcome to the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting is being held live and also via video conferencing in accordance with the Town Board's enactment of Local Law Number 14 of 2022, adopted on May 24th, 2022. Our next meeting and those following will be held in person here at Town Hall and will also continue to allow for remote participation. So we ask you to continually check the town's website for updates and any new information. If you wish to view tonight's live meeting only, please do not join the Zoom meeting and instead go to the town's website. With that, I'd ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you who are here with us in person tonight, in case of an emergency evacuation, please exit through the rear doors of this room to one of the staircases across the hall and continue downstairs and out through the main entrance. Please do not attempt to use the elevators during an emergency evacuation. In case of a medical emergency, the automated external defibrillator and first aid kit are both located in the hallway on this floor opposite the elevator. Restrooms are located across the hall. We will be starting this meeting with the public hearings. We have applicants and members of the public here with us live and also standing by via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. CTV will mute the speakers on Zoom until it is their time to give testimony before the board. Please be patient. If you find that you are having difficulties accessing the hearings, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Please silence your cell phones and refrain from speaking to one another in the boardroom as it interferes with our recording equipment. Tonight, board member Helen Burgess is absent. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking, other than attorneys, will be sworn in, will state their address for the record, and will offer their testimony as it relates to the application before the board. Before handing in any submissions to the board tonight, please make sure that the documents identify the ZBA application name and tax map number. The application name should also be written on your certified receipts. Unless otherwise stated at the end of each hearing, all of these applications will remain open for written comments for all purposes until a date to be announced after the hearing. Those comments can be addressed to the members of the board and sent via email, mail, and/or dropped off at Town Hall to the board secretary, Candace Cowell. Would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. And next, on to adjournments.
Okay, item 2 on the agenda is Camille Quarro and Robert Penny. It's going to be re-advertised for our 10-5 meeting. And then we'll go to items 6, 7, and 8 are all going to be adjourned to our November 16th meeting. 9, Virginia Daly and James Daly will...
Okay. Hold on, let's do votes on them one at a time. Okay, so first one, 625 Butter Lane Homestead LLC, to be adjourned till 11:16. Do we have a second? Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
7 was SGM Excavating LLC, and 8 is SGM
Yep.
Excavating LLC.
We'll do them both at the same time. Do we have a second?
Michelle.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
All right, item 9 is Virginia Daly and James Daly. I'll move to adjourn it to our November 2nd meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr.
No
Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 10 on the agenda, West Hampton Boat Works and Storage LLC. I'll move to adjourn it to our December 7th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
All right.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 11 is Stephen and Melissa Lessar. I'll move to adjourn that to our October 5th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Item 13 on the agenda, which is 911 Flanders Road LLC. I'll move to adjourn to December 7th.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio. Chair votes aye, and just so folks know who are interested in that application, that is because of issues related to secra that are being addressed.
Okay, on the decision calendar, Miguel Vaquero, Eric J. Belfi, and Lumber Lane,
Which one is that?
Aaron Appel,
I didn't get there yet.
Alexander Vyman, and Production Holdings LLC will all be adjourned, we'll do them on 10/5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, back to the beginning of the agenda.
Yeah, sir, if you want to speak, you can speak outside if you need to speak with your agent. Okay.
Item 1 on the agenda is Ann Rana, 607 Millstone Road in Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-36-2-10. Applicant requested determination, the subject parcel, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-36-2-10 is held in single and separate ownership from all adjacent parcels and thus entitled to relief pursuant to 330-115D and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction, you can touch the mic.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. Alice Cooley of Matthews Kirsten Cooley on behalf of the applicant Ann Renna. Also with me tonight is Mrs. Renna's husband, Dr. Howard Renna.
So you tell us about the application, please.
Please, okay, this application is for a single and separate determination for 607 Millstone Road. The subject property is vacant and over 3.1 acres. It contains a pond which straddles the property line with the adjoining property at 575 Millstone, which is 4.6 acres. It is improved with a house, cottage, and pool, all of which meet the setbacks from the shared lot line of 607. These two properties have been treated as single and separate parcels since prior to the adoption of zoning in 1957. They're depicted separately on tax maps from 1974 to the present, which is when they were put in the same ownership. They're indexed separately by the county clerk. They are taxed separately, and copies of the separate tax bills have been provided to the board. The two properties were not used in connection with one another. Both properties were once part of a large tract of farmland, the majority of which was subdivided as the Windy Hill subdivision in 2008. It subdivided the surrounding lots but not the subject lots. There is a large tract of open space that was created as part of the Windy Hill subdivision to the north that kind of wraps around this whole area. A review of the aerials that I handed out shows that the configuration of this property is nearly identical to its appearance in 1962, which predates the transfer into common ownership. I provided aerials from 1962, 1978, 1984, 2016, and 2020, so you can see a continuation of the property. You can see from the pictometry that the clearing on the vacant subject property was done when it was part of a tract of farmland to the northeast, which was mowed to harvest hay, and is not an extension of the lawn on the improved property at 575 Millstone. In fact, the mowing that was done in connection with the farming extends onto the property at 575 Millstone.
All right, they have separate tax bills,
Yes,
tax map numbers.
yes,
Ever a mortgage on any of it?
no,
No?
No.
Separate deeds?
separate deeds.
Okay.
I did also hand out some photographs that I took on the property. You can see from the photos that are taken from 575 facing the subject property, they're labeled as photos 3, 4, and 5, that there is a differentiation that shows it's not an extension of the lawn from 575 Millstone. The subject property is enclosed from the improved property by substantial vegetation along the northwesterly property line. It's difficult to see the improved property from the subject vacant property as a result. If you take a look at photos 1 and 2 in your package, it shows views from 575 and 607 looking back at each other. Neither parcel material enhances the value or utility of the other, and as you can see on the grounds, they would be viewed as separate parcels. Importantly, the subject property conforms to lot width and frontage requirements. It has a means of access directly onto Millstone Road, and while technically undersized, at 136,980 square feet or 3.145 acres where 200,000 is required, it's comparable in size and in many instances larger than the surrounding parcels. Therefore, it's consistent with the character of the neighborhood and would have no adverse impact thereon. The surrounding properties range from just under 1 acre to 4 acres. The subject property would not be out of scale with the nearby properties if the relief is granted, and in fact would be more consistent with the other lots in the area. I also included a chart listing some of the nearby properties and their sizes, so you can see them. That was taken from the GIS.
Okay, so he gave us lots of information, which is the information that we pretty much need to do the analysis. As long as there wasn't an intent on the part of this owner or prior owner to merge this parcel with one of the adjacent parcels, which may be in common, where there's common ownership, pretty much other than that, or evidence on the property that somehow there was an accessory structure that benefited the lot that is where the merger issue happens to be. Absent one of those things occurring, as long as they were treated separately, and the aerial photos are very helpful. Generally, we follow the standards as to what we're to do in a situation like this, which I think, unless we hear something else, which we'll find out, I guess, momentarily, it appears that the test has been satisfied. Okay. Any questions, comments? Is there anyone who is here in the boardroom this evening who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Rina for property located at 607 Millstone Road in Watermill? Is there anyone who's going to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is for property located at 607 Millstone Road in Watermill? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this is the time to let us know by raising your hand. Okay, if not, Mike, is yours.
Okay, we will close the public hearing, leave it open for written submissions until October 6th, and we will have a decision on this matter for October 19th.
Second.
Mrs. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard. Aye. Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3 on the agenda is Lisette Garachi, James Garachi, and Alfred Sciasciso. Whatever. 79 North Summit Boulevard in West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-332-3-8.1. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for one, for a proposed two-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot. 330-115 continuance to where a proposed front yard setback is 75 feet from the northerly property line, Jerome Avenue, where 76.5 feet is existing. And 3, a proposed front yard setback is 65.9 feet from the southerly property line, Watson Avenue, where 77.3 feet currently exists. 2, to legalize an 8x12 frame shed that was constructed without the benefit of a building permit. 330-11, resident districts table of dimensional regulations for an accessory distance from street front yard setback of 20.5 feet, where 110 feet is required from the southerly property line, Watson Avenue. And to 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts. And 330-83C yards, to allow the shed to remain within the required front yard for the principal building. And 3, to legalize a swimming pool that was constructed without the benefit of a building permit. 330-11, for an accessory distance from the street front yard setback of 51.7 feet from the southerly property line, Watson Avenue, where 110 feet is required, and an accessory distance from the street front yard setback of 104.8 feet from the northerly property line, Jerome Avenue, where 110 feet is required. And 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures and uses in all districts. And 330-83C yards, to allow the shed to remain within the required front yard for the principal building and any other relief necessary. Guys, do anything with a building permit or what?
Okay, unless you're an attorney, you're set to swear you in.
No, I'm an architect. So
Okay, if you could just state your name and address.
Bill Barber, Barber Architectural Design, PO Box 90, Blue Point, New York, 11715.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you tell us about the application?
Bless you.
So I have to apologize to Mr. Tuthill here for the mouthful that he had to read. I would say we're here on some form of technicality today. The area that the property was developed in is basically a forest. There are no adjacent neighbors to the north or south, east or west at all for at least 500 feet. There are adjacent parcels that are owned by people that have been informed via the mailings, but overall, there is no neighborhood to be spoken for.
Nevertheless, we don't take lightly structures going up without permits.
Of course, absolutely. So, understood that there was a number of structures and things done illegally over the past. The new owners, Lizette, James, and Fred, inherited the house from their father about 5 or 6 years ago. The house was originally built in the 60s and then never got a CO from that time until they inherited it. That has since been cleaned up on the existing structure. Additionally, there was a pool there that was constructed illegally that they also cleaned up. Unfortunately, in the cleanup process of that, there is a zoning board record for this pool. Unfortunately, the person who cleaned it up did not do a very accurate job and put the pool in the center on the survey, even though it wasn't there. So we have a proper location now for a pool that has not been modified at all in any way since then.
When was that?
Sorry?
When was that?
When was that, you said
I believe 2016.
16?
So the pool went in
No,
2016?
the pool went in prior to that. They
Okay.
inherited the property.
In 2016, and then started dealing with the issues.
Yes, so they were handed
And the
a,
prior survey had the pool in the wrong spot.
exactly. So it received a decision, but based on the wrong.
By this board.
Yeah. Not by the board's impartials, but the surveyor at the time.
So it got a variance, but then it was built and no building permit and no certificate of compliance.
I think
no,
it
I'm
was
sorry,
built
it was
prior to the
built
variance, and then we went to
prior.
go get the variance.
Okay.
The survey was incorrect, where the
With
pool
the
was.
I see.
So now they're
So
cleaning up the survey.
We're here kind of cleaning it all up today,
Okay.
in addition
Okay.
to some of the other things.
Yeah.
So the existing house that's there is in rough shape, and it's for one of the reasons now that they've taken it over. Both of the brother and sister who inherited the house are going to live in the house. One of the family members has some handicap issues that, for that reason, we're adjusting some heights and things like that to make it much more livable. If this property did not have paper streets to the north and the south, a vast majority of these requests today would be null and void. It is our intent to maintain the character of the neighborhood as much as possible. We are not looking to encroach any further towards the street. And we treated the property as if the north and south paper streets were side yards. And for that reason, we have a 75-foot yard setback on the one side and 65 on the other, roughly placing the house in the center of the property. In today's zoning, if those were not quote-unquote front yards, they would be conforming side yards. So that's the reason we approach it that way. Additionally, the pool would also conform to the side yard. We do have 2 additional sheds that are kind of shoved back towards the clearing as we're in aquifer overlay district. And those are something else to be discussed, but overall, we're looking to build a conforming house as far as building code and safety with much more meaningful character, and nothing over the top, but in general, trying to be as respectful towards the zoning board and the zoning code as much as possible, even though we don't have any technical building envelope.
Okay. So do we have any information, other than the issue with the survey, as to who put the pool in? What pool company put the pool in?
I do not, but I'm sure we can dig in and find out if we do that.
Okay, that would be helpful. And then we can talk about the shed and talk about the relief, kind of one at a time, as to the necessity for it.
What's the nature of the shed?
There are
there's
2
a-
sheds.
There's 2 sheds, they're both used for yard equipment.
One is wooden and one is metal.
They have foundations?
They have block foundations that are just kind of the posts and support, not a true 3-foot deep foundation.
Right.
How old are the sheds?
Based on a visual, I would say one of them is about 15 years old, one is about 20.
Okay. The reason I ask is because if we grant variance relief for a shed, we're gonna need, a certification that it was gonna withstand a major storm. And if it's not in good shape, I don't think you'll be able to get that certification, so I just wanna mention that to you.
What, if any, obstacles are there for you, for your client to move them or remove them?
None that I know of at the moment. I'll say that the biggest concern as far as the property is the clearing limit. I believe that for a 10x10 or 8x12 shed, we can find somewhere that is slightly more conforming. As stated.
How about conforming?
Well, we can't be conforming because we have a 200-foot wide lot and we have 3 front yards. So essentially, we have a negative 20-foot wide
Yeah,
building.
he has no building envelope. I actually went to the site, and the two avenues, Watson and Jerome, you can't even find them.
No,
I mean, it's like a total woods, and there's not even a path.
no, they don't
And,
exist.
and behind the property, it looked to me
Paper
like
only,
this is a
Paper only.
recycle
Oh, it's a
center,
paper.
There is a
Street?
town recycling center. and
right,
then
that
beyond
borders
there is,
on, yeah.
a West Hampton care facility a little bit further.
Yeah,
so
a little
it's-
bit, right next to you is the, but it's, when you say it's in the middle of the woods, it is clearly in the middle of the woods.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, that, these roads don't exist at all.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's almost impossible for them to, accommodate any kind of setback on those roads, because
Are
they
they
don't
deemed
exist.
abandoned any time, the roads, or no?
I- who
One of them is
knows?
saying partially abandoned on the survey. I don't know how accurate that is, but.
Yeah.
What happens with that?
Well, they can go through a process of abandonment if they want to. Maybe-
Technically, unless the
yeah.
full road is abandoned, if I understand, so property owner abandons half, the other half still remains,
Right.
it's still considered a front yard. It's
Right.
an
Yeah,
interesting
but
code
honestly,
change, I think.
it doesn't look like it goes through at all.
That's correct.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
totally woods. There's
It's-
there's
we're-
nothing like at the other end
Yeah,
where you
yeah,
can
yeah.
see a path, nothing.
I think it's a good justification, or, at least
Right.
an argument to be made to this
Right,
board.
right.
When you
Right.
have a road like that that's never gonna be open and doesn't serve as a front yard, usually because you have other properties in the area,
Yeah,
right? You wanna make
exactly,
sure you have setbacks,
exactly.
One of the adjacent neighbors is actually the owner of the tract of lands, and when he received the mailing, he had called the owners and told them that they actually have the right to inhabit the road, or purchase the road, or absorb it, however they want to legally call it. And they were just notified of that about a week ago.
So they're considering that,
They would be considering it
depending on price.
depending on price and honestly, the reaction to the board today. If it became something that became an issue and a need, then they would go for it, but my interpretation is that's something that's gonna take a long time and a lot of money to get done, so they'd rather move forward at this point.
Yeah. Just going back to the issue with the as-built, this is a situation, my understanding is a situation where the children are trying to rectify the situation, and they probably have very little information as to what their father did or didn't do on the property. It may be that we can get some information, but under a normal set of circumstances, we would be asking for the applicant or the contractor to come in to tell us how structures went up without permits or built in the wrong location with a permit. But I don't know how much information you can gather, but whatever you can would be appreciated. But just so you know, normally we would say, come back with people to explain the whole thing to us.
Right, understanding if it was a stick-built shed, I can do an as-built of it and provide the proper documentation. The one that's a metal shed, I'm assuming was a purchased and dropped item. And it's probably gonna be a cheaper and faster endeavor to get a proper one done correctly, dropped on the
In a
site.
better location.
In a better
Right,
location.
Yeah,
right.
than
that's what I
trying
would
to
like
go
to
through
see.
with the board and all that. So if we
Right,
had to
right.
abandon any of those sheds, I think it would be an easy abandonment shed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that John's point, though, that if we can find conforming locations for the sheds, that's what we should do.
Or more.
Or
And-
mo-
and-
more
More
conforming.
conforming.
You corrected me on
Right.
that,
No,
so.
well, that's true. That's
More
true.
conforming.
That's true, because he has a
Right.
zero building envelope. But-
Yeah, yeah.
But also the withstanding of the, we need some certification that it would
Right.
withstand
Storms.
storms.
Yeah.
So if it was a purchase shed, we'd have the brochure and all the requirements for that.
Well,
Mr.
if it's a brand new shed, I don't know
I'm
if
saying
we
if it
have.
was a new purchase shed.
Right.
Right.
As opposed to
Otherwise,
it-
you would need someone to come in and.
From 20 years ago
And
to
say
say
that
that.
it is,
No, right, exactly.
Right, right.
Mr. Barber, this paper road, which I guess is on the south, is that wholly
Watson? Is that
not
Watson?
owned by the party, and is this one on the north kind of half owned by them, or, because it looks like they're varying, this is wider than that. Did you say that one was,
One says partially abandoned. I don't know if that means that the southern property has inhabited that space and taken over it.
okay,
Maybe the 10 of the 20 feet, but I don't know
Oh.
the exact justification of how they got there.
right,
But as Susan said, there's There's no roads to be found.
You can't find them.
There's no markers, there's no
Yeah,
trees.
and there's obviously never been any kind of movement on them or
And
whatever.
and I believe due to the
Either
wetlands
cause of that.
overlay district and these parcels have been for sale on and off for 60 years at this point.
So are they
Only sold
paper
two for
roads?
so
Essentially.
it's very good.
Essentially, there's no road there.
Right.
There's no road, there's nothing.
Okay,
no
so
road
it's a
there.
paper road.
It's just
Right.
woods.
It is, it is.
And I don't, I don't know how you deal with paper roads. Ultimately, I know that the road committee gets involved occasionally, but,
They're just paper roads. I mean,
Yeah.
they're treated as front yards, they have front yard setbacks for them, that's it.
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
But wouldn't you say also that the fact that it's a paper road probably leans in the calculus in favor of the applicant?
Sure, 'cause
Yeah.
there's
Absolutely.
There's no
Definitely.
way they can build
Absolutely.
anything.
I would say
Yeah.
so.
So it's
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
being forced to have limited setbacks for a
For
road
a
that, the road that
nothing.
isn't the road.
It's never gonna happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why we treated the property as we did, you know. Like I said, the principal dwelling in the pool would be conforming as far as side yards are concerned if those were.
If those
side
roads weren't roads.
Yeah.
They're not. So,
They're not.
Yes.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
other advantage in this application is the fact that it isn't impacting neighbors to speak of, so that's,
Right.
that's not typical, so, yeah, so that I think is, and also, 3 front yards, I
Which
mean,
is-
you know, limitations as to what can be built and where, your restrictions on the property is severely constrained lot.
Very,
Yeah.
right.
Can I just ask you about the wooden bin that seems to be between the metal shed and the Summit Road? There's like it looked like a garbage bin or something, I don't know, it's like right on the
On
property.
Jerome? That's it?
It's on Jerome, yeah.
I'm not
It's
aware.
not-
Wooden
it's not-
bin?
It's not on the survey. It looked like a wooden bin to me.
So I could just add one thing, looking at this is an old file map, looking at, the planning board did open up a development section here, and so I could say any of the paper roads in question are not slated to be opened up at all.
Okay.
So the planning board's already looked at this, that's.
Oh.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I didn't see it on the survey. It's-
And to the north and the
it's
south, are there any structures on those, or that's just woods?
No, there's no structures for probably 500 feet in every direction, except for the waste facility.
Is it simply because no one has built there, or is it because it's somehow restricted?
I
if you
believe
know?
no one has built there because it is so restrictive. Like I said, there's a wetlands overlay district that limits the clearing automatically, so if you're buying a parcel that's almost 2 acres, but you can only clear about a 3/4 acre, in today's market, that's a really difficult sale.
Right.
So, or plus the cost of clearing that much woods.
And it's right next to the.
Yeah.
It's the recycling center
Exactly.
too, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Members of the board? Is there anyone who is in the audience this evening who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Lizette and several other folks, Salvatore, Arvin and George Scasasia? I don't know. The property is located at 79 at North Summit Boulevard in West Hampton.
Don't make me say it.
Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is a property located at 79 North Summit Boulevard in West Hampton? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. All right, if not, Susan, it's yours.
Okay, so we're going to keep this application open for written submissions until October 6th with a decision on October 19th.
Second,
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
You did a good job.
Bill,
You did a good job. That is
Nice when they come.
respectful.
Item 4 on the agenda is 69 Wild Goose Lane LLC. 69 Wild Goose Lane in Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-103-2-30. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code to legalize the conversion of an existing attic space into a habitable space without the benefit of a building permit, thereby creating a third story. 330-6, general regulations that references 330-11, residence district dimensional regulations to allow a 3-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot where a maximum of 2 stories is permitted and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Jackie Morley from Toomey Latham, Shea, Talladega, Guerrero, Riverhead. I'm here on behalf of our client Alex Stein.
Are you an attorney, Jackie?
I am.
You are, okay, just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure, because otherwise I would have to
Yes.
swear you in.
Yep.
Okay.
Here on behalf of Alex Stein, I believe he is on Zoom, as well as our architect, Rick Stott, I think is on the phone on the Zoom link,
Okay.
just so we know. So we're here for you, today before you, for the legalization of a third story that was, included in this dwelling when it was built in 1976. The structure of the house has not changed since that time. I provided pictures at Exhibit E, to show, you know, it was there back then, it's there now. We've even provided, I think, an email, I think it's Exhibit F, for, just to show that the windows were at some point traded out, but they were specifically made to match what was there before and custom made. Just confirming that may be why they look new, but they haven't been changed otherwise. You know, this is a house that was in our client's home. Since that time, he would come out with his family. Prior to that, they were used to rent, and then they ended up buying this property, built the house in 1976. And, you know, he remembers his father using the space as an office, and they had friends that would stay up in the bedroom there and use the bathroom, and, you know, it's been that way for this entire time. I had included two other decisions that had similar situations to this. I believe they were both constructed. One was I think, in 1970, in the late 1970s. One was constructed in 1980, and had built out the third story there as well. Those are at Exhibit I and J in the packet. And I have a third example as well that I can pass out to at this time. If that's
Feel free, you
fine.
can give it to
Okay.
our attorney, and
Okay, great.
we'll pass them
And
over.
it's a similar situation to this as well. You know, back then, 2.5 years were allowed, and, you know, this is, I think, in line with that. Obviously, at this time, they're just asking to legalize this existing space already. It wouldn't, there would be no change to the exterior of the dwelling, no disturbances beyond that. I've heard from two neighbors at this time. Both are okay with the application, didn't have any issue with it. And I know that Alex would love to speak to if it's okay, whenever you're ready for that too.
Okay, before we do that, just want to ask if there are any questions or comments. I just want to start with, I take the third story applications very seriously, because in the town of Southampton, you know, it's 2 stories max, and in order for us to grant relief for a third story, you know, I gotta be convinced that there's some unusual circumstances that aren't just the everyday person who decides to buy a house, that they just, oh, I wanna make the attic into a third story. There are some circumstances here, and I'm, you know, making the arguments that, you know, I think the applicant should be making, that this is how it was when it was built, and it was, in terms of the structure itself, it was legal at the time. At least a 2.5 story, I think is what you mentioned. But I don't know if the living space was legal on the 3rd floor at the time.
At the time, I mean, they received a CO back then when it was built. I think it's just that now it's, you know, the third story is not, you know, welcome with the code, but, you know, our clients, you know, this is like I said, a family home. They've been there this entire time. It's an important house to them. They're not looking to make any changes to it, or, and I think he mentioned to me as well that, this will be the last house on his block that hasn't been redone in this area, and they really wanna preserve it that way. And just continuing to enjoy it like that, and I understand what you mean about, wanting to, you know, not encourage other third stories, and I don't believe that's the situation here. This is, you know, been in their family for a very long time now.
What are the circumstances under which they now decided to legalize this?
I think their concern is just that they wanna make sure that everything's ready to go, and, I know that.
For what?
I think it came up when they were looking at, like, fixing part of the bathroom, but I can also have the client speak to it too.
The Google photo of here makes it appear like there's some extensive work going on with roofing and siding and insulation, unless that's the wrong photo. Was something done in recent years, to your knowledge?
Is that on, you're looking at Google?
Yeah, Google Street View.
Yeah, it looks like it's a construction site. But I could be wrong, but it just looks like a brand-new roof.
I went to see it, I didn't see any construction there, but that,
Oh, yeah.
if,
Okay.
does it, in the
Yeah.
back? I didn't look in the back, so.
Well, there's,
Oh, yeah.
I know that they had a pool put in, and I think at some point that was showing up on one image I saw, that there was still construction on the pool.
Mm.
Yeah, so this is
Yeah, it's
before that,
probably-
because
Yeah.
there's no pool here, so
Yeah,
Okay.
I
who
don't know.
knows when
Yeah.
that's from. Okay.
Yeah.
How high is the building?
It is, I need to check, I'm sorry. And actually, if the architect's on the phone, that would help too.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, I'd like to know the height.
yeah. I can
What's
also
what's the
text
name of
you.
the architect?
Rick,
Okay.
Yeah.
Rick Stott.
Rick
Okay,
Stott.
Rich Stott. Kevin,
Hampton
can
Bays.
you
I know, Rick.
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
Rick
I
Stott
know Rick.
into the Zoom? Okay, thank you.
It, I did go to the site. The building looks very much like the rest of the buildings on the street. They're all two-story, but they're about the same height, maybe even higher. It doesn't look out of place in terms of the other buildings on the street. But
Okay.
it is a third story, and that is a concern.
Yeah,
And, you
yeah.
know, we're very worried about people the rights for a third story running with the land as opposed to a particular building and all that other stuff, so we have to, be very careful about that.
It could be that the neighbors are supportive because maybe they're planning on doing it.
Really,
Well, I
they
don't
want to
think so.
protect their property
It looks like they just have very high
values.
ceilings, like, cathedral
Okay.
ceilings or
Okay.
whatever, but I'm
Do
not sure.
sprinklers, do
Yes.
sprinklers exist on the third floor now?
No,
yes,
no.
everything's
Oh,
up to,
every,
up to code, yep.
oh, okay.
Yeah, everything's up to code.
Good.
Okay.
But,
Rick, I just
yeah.
have to swear you in. If you can just state your name and address for the record, please. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Get it
Oh, I think
Yeah, you
that-
got
I
a
think
double
he's on his
feedback.
phone, he was having an issue before, so I think.
You got a
he's on.
double.
Okay,
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes.
that's better. So I just need to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Richard Stott, 59 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. So Susan just had a question for you.
Could you tell me the height of the structure?
Susan, I can, I'm gonna, I have to go off screen here and check it. It is 31 feet, 7 3/8 of an inch above grade.
So it's just almost at the maximum height?
What's it, 32, right?
Okay,
Okay.
5 inches short.
okay. And have you looked at the interior of the house? Is this, I guess this house is from the 1970s. Does it appear to be pretty much in the same condition, or basically as it was some time ago, or has work been done on it?
It's been very well maintained, but I'm not familiar with the history of the house, so I don't know what may have been added or renovated over those years, but it's in very nice condition and very well kept.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Sure the sprinklers over there,
the
they
con-
were installed in the 70s, right?
Yeah, so I think they just wanted to make sure that it was, safe, obviously.
And the third floor has sloping ceilings, correct? I mean, so
Yeah,
it's,
um,
I think you had a picture in here of what it
Mhm.
looked like.
Yeah, so you can see,
Right.
oh, that's the last photo, I apologize. Yeah, you see it's,
Right.
with the sloping there, and then this bedroom
Okay.
over here, so.
It's not like it's straight up,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what is on the third story? What is
So
it?
there's like an office, that middle space is an office area, and there's a bathroom and one other room,
2 bedrooms and 1 bath.
yeah, so,
Do you know what the square footage is of the third floor?
I think, Rick, do you have it in front of you there? Cause I have to pull it out of here, I apologize.
Yeah, that's on the
Yeah.
drawings.
Yeah, I think we submitted that with,
Okay, but
Yeah,
we'd
what
still
is
like
it?
to know what it is.
I know, well, if you
Yeah.
did. but-
Do you want me to look that up?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay.
I apologize for the.
we got the plans.
7'6" in center, 5.9 feet on the slope.
Looks like Keith has them.
Oh,
Keith, I think you have the
I
plans.
think you've got the
He
plans.
has the original file, but we have the architect right here, so.
Yeah, all right, so yeah.
I'm getting close.
Okay.
But 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, that's basically what's in the 3rd story?
It's 2 rooms and a bathroom is
Yeah.
stated
Is
in
that,
this.
is that big, the 2 room and
Yeah.
the other one?
Okay. Not a small amount of space in and of itself. And
Sorry
sometime-
for the delay, folks, I'm having a little trouble manipulating my laptop. The Zoom meeting.
The house appears to be online, listed for rent. Does it have anything to do with obtaining a rental permit?
Okay, so you asked for
Here, I
square
have this
footages?
too here.
Yes.
First floor is 1,691,
Mm-hmm.
plus the garage of 761. The second floor is 2,037 square feet.
And the third?
What's the third?
Third is 1,060.
1,060.
That's at the bottom of page EC 100. Bottom right.
Okay. Any other questions of the architect?
No.
Okay. Can we have the applicant?
Yep,
Yep,
absolutely.
yep.
Um,
Thank you for your testimony, greatly appreciate it. Yeah, so if we can have the applicant, Kevin, if you, yep,
And it's Alex Stein.
yep. Okay, thank you. Well, we haven't come
Do
back.
we ask
yet.
the ceiling heights of the 3rd floor?
They have,
Well, we're not asking for pyramid relief, so you can ask it anyway, but.
I'm just interested to know.
Sure, okay.
So that's stop all the
We can have him come
Hello,
back.
can you hear me?
We can hear you, we just can't see you yet, so hopefully you'll be on in a second.
There we go.
There we go.
Can you see me now?
I can see you now and we can hear you. So I just have to swear you in. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Alexander Stein, my home address is 29 Austerlitz Road, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, so we just, have some questions for you, or maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the need for the third story to remain on the property.
Sure. As has been stated, this is a family home with a lot of history. My parents started going renting in the 50s before I was born in Southampton. In 72, I believe, they decided it was time to build a home for the Hall family. The home was built in 75, finished in early 76. And I went through my dad's old pictures. Unfortunately, he was the photographer, so he never took pictures of himself. But we got the construction pictures clearly showing all of the dormers and the 3rd floor windows in that construction phase. Excuse me, I was waving my hand. So the home has always had the 3rd floor. My parents envisioning the 3 of their kids, including myself and someday grandkids. My dad wanted an office space that was quiet, away from all the hullabaloo. And that actually worked out very well for him because all family holidays, Thanksgiving, were always held out there and the house was chock full. The house has so much history that 36 years ago, my wife and I were married there. That's why we're celebrating our 35th anniversary right now. It took us 15 months to actually get the trip going. So I apologize for not being there. My daughter was married this past spring at the house. Both of my parents passed away at the house. My mom in 16, my dad in 18. Unfortunately, in their last years, for numerous reasons, they didn't keep up the house very well. And I appreciate Rick saying it's in good shape. When we inherited it, and the understanding with my parents was that we would keep the house, It needed all new windows, all new roof, all new siding. We had to put a lot of work into it. And throughout all this, we always assumed that everything was copacetic with respect to permitting. But after putting that much money into cleaning up the house, we decided that we wanted to rent it part-time. And that's when we found out the third floor had not been permitted, so we haven't been renting the third floor. Regardless of renting, because we intend to keep the house, we want to, have the entire home have an appropriate certificate of occupancy. I can tell you absolutely, no exterior walls have been changed whatsoever. In the renovation, we changed the kitchen and we changed a single door to a sliding door. That is the only change from the house that I grew up in 76. The bedroom and that office and bathroom were there. In 79, when I graduated high school, we had my high school graduation party there. People used that bedroom. So it's been there all along. The reason for the request is I inherited the home a few years ago, and at the time I was not aware that the third floor had not been properly documented. I actually don't know what the procedure was at the time, but nothing's changed on the
That's
third floor,
understandable.
other than we have had to replace those structural components: roof, windows, siding. Oh, I'm sorry, and depending on what you were looking at in Google Earth, my father would not allow a pool. The one thing we did after he passed was we put a pool in. We did get a permit for that, and you should have a survey that shows it. So you may have seen construction in the backyard for the pool. You may have also seen a lot of the backyard was quite overgrown when we inherited the house. My father had, well, let me back up. The trees on the property, many of them are 40 and 45-years old. They're spectacular. But he let much of the backyard get overgrown. So we had to have landscapers come in, clear out the weeds, and we replanted the lawn. So if there are any questions, happy to answer, but I think those were the items that you asked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. One question I had is, your attorney indicated that there was a sprinkler system put in. Do you know when the sprinkler system was put in?
I'm sorry, we do not have a sprinkler system.
Oh, that's my mistake.
We have, I'm sorry,
No, you,
we've hired Rick Stock, the architect. If we get approval, we want to know what needs to be done in terms of sprinkler system, and then we will do it, and
Yeah.
I commit to that.
it's New York State Building Code that you have to have a sprinkler system if we grant the relief for a third story. I also want to tell you that there could have been a terrible tragedy that could have happened on this property if there would have been a fire without a sprinkler system. People could have died for decades. Yeah.
I understand that.
Well, it's and
Obviously,
people,
as a
you can,
child.
well, you can look into it, what happens if there's a third story without a sprinkler system and there's a fire. It is quite dangerous, so I'm very glad that never happened.
Do you have a full basement?
Yes,
Is it finished?
no,
Okay. And where do you have storage in the house?
the basement. Well, I mean, they're closets, but the basement and closets. Right now, the basement is chock full of lots of stuff for
Okay.
many decades.
Okay. And you also indicated that your dad had used it as an office at some point, and then at some point it ended up being bedrooms. Do you recall the time frame of when that may have happened?
Sorry, let me clarify, because someone said 2 bedrooms and someone else corrected it. The third floor has a large room and then another room attached to it. The large room is what I call the office. His original desk is still in there,
he would use that, and frankly, I use that as office space. The smaller room has a queen bed, and that's the queen bed that's been there for quite a while. I'm not sure, but it never changed. In fact, I believe Robert Camerino spoke to also seeing my dad working up there. I'm not sure if he said that in the letter, but that was his place to escape.
Okay. Mike, I think you had some questions?
No, I understand, and the fact that you did the roof and the siding explains the Google Earth picture, which is probably a couple of years old. Satellite, so, makes sense.
Yeah. So I just want to mention, I don't know that when this house was built, that it was a third story was legal. I don't think it ever was. The structure might have been legal, but just as the third story being attic storage space, not living space, I think that probably is the
Well,
case.
that's where I come in with, sir, do you know what the ceiling heights on the third level are?
Yeah, it says it in here, there's 7'6" in the center.
Where do you see
Down to,
Is it in the?
5.9.
And we can bring the architect back to confirm. if you want.
So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a half story.
Oh, I understand.
7.6 is an 8-foot ceiling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's on like
yeah.
page 4 or 5 of
Yeah,
the.
this is a full 3-story house.
Yeah, this is a
without-
3-story
without a doubt,
house.
Without a doubt. So, and
So it's
you know,
possible that under the
Yeah.
regulations, under the code, allowing a half,
Well-
2.5.
That was originally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
that
when
means,
she attached that section of the code,
Yeah.
it allowed 2.5-story houses, and it allowed the height to be 35 feet.
yeah, but it didn't allow third
three
story,
Right.
stories.
three-story living space.
It was
The-
probably
The third
unfinished.
Allowed
story is like
2.5.
what most people have, they have an attic for storage.
It was probably unfinished when completed and then finished after.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So the question.
Oh, here I
yeah.
see where it is, yes.
Yeah.
And I was in high school in 76 to 79, and I remember my dad working up there. As far as I
Yeah,
know,
it's
it
right
was
here.
finished
It's
when
good.
the house was finished in
Yeah.
76.
Yeah, yeah, and let me also clarify, I don't think the applicant's making the argument that it was a legal living space in the third story. I mean, I think
No.
we're asking for relief to convert into living space. So we have to be under the presumption that this is never legal as living space, the third story.
Correct.
And but historically,
Well,
They-
but
they
to a
had
certain
they had
extent, the
used it.
application is saying that it was built according to the requirements at the time that it was built.
yeah, but which is that they were allowed to build it at that height, but not necessarily third story habitable living
Exactly.
space, which is
Exactly.
a distinction.
I think that belies the claim.
Right.
The two dormer windows on the third floor, were they original or they added at some point when the roof was done?
They were original, and I submitted photographs of the house under construction with the
Right.
dormer
Okay.
windows. So it was pretty obvious that that was finished living space. You don't put dormers into storage space.
Yeah, and I will also mention,
people do.
having been around for a little while on the board, that when we've had these three-story applications, we scrutinize them, and sometimes it ends up going to a split vote, one way or the other way. But we ask all these kinds of questions, and so, we've had some heated, applications where the applicant makes the argument that, well, we used it for, 25 years as a third story, it wasn't legal, but because we used it as a third story for 25 years, we should get this relief. And,
What's the hardship of us not approving this?
Well, the problem becomes they're probably gonna use it anyway without the sprinklers being
But
put
they,
in.
well, and they can't rent it as a third story, but the hardship would be that they can't get a rental permit if it continues to be used as a third story.
Well, I believe you do have a rental or you do not have a rental permit. You have a
don't
rental
think so.
permit with not using the third story floor, or you don't have a rental permit at all?
It excludes the bedroom on the third story.
Right.
So you
Oh,
have
alright,
to close
so-
it off.
Right.
Okay.
Condition.
That's when I
Make it a
found out
condition, no rental up
there
there.
was an issue, because I was
Put in a
surprised
sprinkler
that
system and you
it
can't
didn't
rent the
list
third
all 6
story.
bedrooms.
I don't know
I'm
about
sorry.
that one.
Sorry,
We're
we
just
had
talking
two
amongst
conversations going
ourselves.
on at once. Okay.
Well, Keith, put your
Yeah,
point
Keith,
forward.
can you repeat what you were saying?
Yeah.
I'm saying, well, you gotta put the sprinkler system in, and we'll condition, everything upon the fact that you can't rent the third story.
But that means you can rent the house, but you can't rent the third story
But if we
separately.
if we allow them, if we grant the variance to legalize the property, he should be able to use it according to the code and regulations that currently exist.
You can use it as an office. I'm just saying it, Is there a kitchen up there?
There's a,
Sorry?
Just a
No.
bed.
No,
No.
you said there was a sprinkler system in
But
there.
there's definitely no kitchen up there.
You know what I mean? Take it easy, man. I'm not asking you.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
point is, I put a lot of effort into the house, and I would like the whole house to be usable and legal. And I'm willing to do the upgrades that Rick has, told me that would need to be done. Of course, that makes sense. I'd like to make sure that the upgrades we do meet your requirements, but, obviously I didn't need to bring this up. I inherited the house as is. All I can tell you is it was built day one with that third floor living space, as you can see by the dormers, and I'm trying to do right.
Understood.
We have in other cases conditioned our approval on the fact that you can't expand the third story and that any reconstruction of the house, the approval of the third story does not pass to that reconstruction of the house. Is that something you'd be willing to live with?
I would be comfortable with that, yes.
I'm good.
I don't see a problem.
Katie, remember,
We just recently did that.
we just recently did that,
Right.
yes.
So, and if someone bought the property and,
Knocked down.
God forbid, I'm sure from your perspective, tore it down and rebuilt another house,
Couldn't have a
that
third story.
third story would not travel with the property.
Right.
Of course. I mean, ironically, I believe my parents' house was the first, maybe it was the second house on Wild Goose Lane. And it's pretty much going to be the last, because unfortunately, Jim Halsey on the other side of me passed a little over a year ago, and a contractor's building that. So every other house in the neighborhood is going to be new. And I'm actually proud that we've been able to maintain the original house from the 70s.
Yeah, and I just want to mention one other thing, which is for those folks who might be watching this public hearing and contemplating, well, next week I want to prepare an application for a third story. It sounds like a great idea. The part of what we're relying upon, part of I think what we're considering here, is the fact that for decades your family used this third story thinking it was legal.
Since '76.
Since '76, since for a very long time, and that is a factor in our decision. So somebody who decided
Right.
tomorrow just to say, okay, I'm going to put in my third story on my what is now attic space, we're not going to see that in the same way.
Okay.
So
I
I
just
just
have
want
a question, I'm just curious, is anybody, less than the applicant actually, I don't know what the records look like from '76, but were there building and floor plans on record from '76? I'd be curious to see, do we have a floor plan that says what the space is supposed to
I
look
looked
like?
at the
I'm just
CO,
curious.
it just says
it's
single-family
76,
It's a good
house.
question.
knows, but
It's a
you
good
may wanna
question.
pull the record and see what was on.
the actual
there, 'cause
plans.
Yeah.
if there's a 1,000 square foot third story, however that space is, whether it's storage space or not, but at least you would know then, a building plan's approved 1,000 square feet as a third story, and maybe that might be something you want to look at.
So, Jackie, if you could submit anything you can find in the building department's file about
Who knows?
what,
It
if
will be
there
there,
is something, there may or may not be, because it's a very long time ago, but,
Absolutely.
yeah, if you could,
A
I know
floor
we've
plan.
foiled before, but I'll do it again for this one, see what we can find out.
okay,
All right.
okay,
Um,
sure,
It's a good point, Anthony.
okay.
One of the reasons, with Rick Stott's help, we hired a company called Existing Conditions, I think it was called, to do a survey of the house, because I could not locate any original documents, well, any documents, on the design and the build.
Okay. Let's see what exists, if anything.
Yep, yep, okay.
All right, so I think you need
Any
to
other-
come
any-
back, maybe? Does this come back with information, or what? No?
Yeah, I would hold it open to see what else we could submit from the original plans, like Anthony said, if it has anything.
So just open for submissions, or?
For submissions, or do you want them to come back?
Submissions is fine,
Okay.
and then
Anybody here?
with the other conditions that we all mentioned with.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who's here in the boardroom who would like to be heard in connection with the application of 69 Wild Goose Lane LLC for property located at 69 Wild Goose Lane in Watermill? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is for property located at 69 Wild Goose Lane in Watermill? If you're waiting to be heard, this will be the time to let us know by raising your hand. Okay, if not, Keith, it is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna close it with written subs by 10-6, okay?
You get everything by then, right?
Second.
And termination on 10-19.
Okay, Mr. Tudhill,
Aye.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio,
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, this is, moving on to new adjourned applications. Do we have the jurisdiction on this one already?
Yes, we already opened it.
Okay. Item 5, Mary T. Shannon and Ann M. O'Connell, 25 Marlin Road in East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-384-3-13.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
I have to set the swearing in. I can swear you both in if you'd like.
Thank you
Just,
very much.
Both state your names and addresses for the record, please.
Lori Wiltshire, 15 Church Street, Sag Harbor.
Joshua Meyer, 1257 Udall Road, Bay Shore, New York.
And do you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Then tell-
I didn't get his name. Your name again?
Joshua Meyer?
Not sure.
Okay.
And you want here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Original for John. Thank you. And then copies. Okay, can you tell us about the application?
Yes, so, this application is to build a 2,347 square foot new 4-bedroom residence on a conforming lot of 11,250 square feet with lot width of only 75 feet. The property is not just in a FEMA zone AE elevation 9, requiring an additional 2 feet of BFE, 11 foot, but it's also in a limited wave action zone requiring an additional 2 feet of base flood elevation. The project meets all of the zoning requirements except pyramid due to the additional 4 feet of BFE required and the narrow width of the lot. We have submitted photos of the existing house and the neighboring structures, so you can see that that a two-story house on the subject property will not be out of character with the neighborhood and will not create a detriment to nearby properties. You can clearly see that every other house moving down to the left is a two-story home. The project will include the installation of an IAOWTS sanitary system and proper drainage, as well as a non-fertilization, non-disturbance wetlands buffer, which will enhance the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood. We also submit a zoning board decision and photo for nearby 9 Shinnecock Road in the same development and same flood zone, where 2,040 cubic feet of relief was granted. I should note that this decision was rendered in 2005, prior to the FEMA regulations increasing the required BFE by 2 feet in 2007. This is also true of pyramid variances granted in 1997 at 5 Marlin and in 1998 for 31 Landing Lane. In those instances, all 3 of them, they only had to meet the actual BFE. They did not have to add an additional 2 feet pursuant to New York State. And I don't believe they were in limited wave action. Their surveys don't say whether they were or were not. The applicant's intent to add functionality and additional living space cannot be achieved without the relief requested, as it is the minimum amount necessary to achieve their goal. We have also attached the Conservation Board conditional approval and the New York State DEC letter of non-jurisdiction. And I am going to turn the floor over to Josh Myers to explain the evolution of this application, which has gone through several iterations at the recommendation of the building department. And
So also to add to one of the approvals, we also have the Shinnecock Shores Homeowners Association. They also have issued approval. They reviewed the plans as is. So they've also gave us their blessing. So originally, we did start this with a one-story house. You know, the intent is they want the 4 bedrooms. They have 2 kids, a mother that they need to take care of. Right now, this is not a full-time house for them. They are going to make this their permanent home. They're gonna, you know, transition to this being their full-time living situation. When we did start, we started 1 story to try to, you know, accomplish everything we needed. When we did submit that, environmental conservation kicked us back. They wanted the buffer, the vegetation zone. By the time we brought that back in, we were not able to accomplish a 4-bedroom on a 1-story anymore. So we did move half it up top. So we kept the master suite on the first floor. The owners, they are disabled, so they need 1 level living. But they do have 2 kids, so we moved those 2 bedrooms to the second floor. The right-hand side of the open area, for the living room, dining, kitchen, that's all open air, you know, that kind of leads into the second floor, but it's not second floor across the whole house, it's only on one side of the house. We're asking for the pyramid on the roof side just for, you know, the gable end that cuts into the pyramid. And on the other side, it's pretty much where the second floor lands. As Lori had mentioned, we further got hindered by the zoning review when we originally had this at AE +2, but Southampton requires that when you're in a limited wave action zone, you elevate an additional 2 feet to get your bottom of your structure out of your flood zone. So that means we're now 4 feet above BFE rather than the standard 2 foot. So that definitely kicked us up, you know, great deal amount into the pyramid. We
So
did-
what is your final height on the base? Is 11 feet?
No, our finished floor is at 13.1.
13, all right, okay.
So in an AE zone, we would have been required to be at 11 foot finished floor, but because we're treated as a V zone now because of the limited wave impact zone, we have to kick that up to 13.
Okay.
Do you know what the pyramid relief would have been if you don't have to kick up the extra 2 feet?
Yes, I do.
that was our original submission, actually.
So yes.
Do you know how, pardon me, how much the additional 2 feet increases your pyramid request?
That was the question, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was just.
you're really smart, you know that?
No, no,
I
no,
might
no,
think
no,
alike, you know?
he asked it, so you didn't hear it, that was.
Let me hear it, up, Mike.
Yeah, did we get an answer?
No,
we-
not yet.
Because
you
Just gotta listen to your question.
So finished floor, BFE +2, that would put us at 3,231, so approximately 1,800 cubic feet would be eliminated if we left it at that point. We did mention one of the previous approvals that did not require any of the lifting, and that would have, if we left it at BFE, our ask for the pyramid would only be 1,689 cubic feet.
And I
Listen, we
would,
wanna make sure the structure's gonna be safe.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
We've been doing this for a long time.
And we're not that
I mean,
much over the.
No.
and I will
It
note
is
that
what it is.
at 17 Shinnecock Road in 2014, there was a pyramid variance granted for 3,110, but it only had to meet the BFE +2. It didn't have a limited wave action component.
It is
I
what
can
it
submit
is.
that too, since I just brought it up.
Okay.
Well, and appreciate all the information. I think probably some of the members of the board are going to ask about ceiling heights and whether anything can be done about the number that we're working with. I don't know that there can be, but I suspect.
answer.
Sure. So what are the ceiling heights?
So it's 9 foot first floor and 8 foot second floor. The 9 foot is in the bedroom area. In the living room, dining room, that's a vaulted ceiling in there. I would like to mention though, 800 cubic feet is open area. It's not an enclosed bedroom. It's a rooftop, it's a deck, not a rooftop deck, but we have a balcony that projects into the rear of the house. So it's just a roof over, so it's not habitable space that is occupying the pyramid. It's clear space.
Outdoor
So it's
deck.
just a railing with a roof over it. It's just a continuation of the house roof.
And there'd be no application later on to enclose that.
You can put that as a restriction.
Yeah, they really, this is,
Okay.
this is a goal. They don't need additional space. They're trying to
Yeah,
house
It's
their,
been in the family since
their 4
1989.
bedrooms.
So this is, their house is there where they wanna finish it off.
Okay, are we okay with 5,000 cubic feet of pyramid relief?
I feel it's too much.
Same.
I do not in this particular instance.
This particular instance, I don't have a problem with it, considering the restrictions you put on there.
I don't have a problem with it, considering the restrictions.
And I don't have a problem with it.
Great.
Okay. So, you just squeaking by.
Squeaking by.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
However, before we're done.
Public
Before we're done, I want to ask, is there anyone from the public and who's in the boardroom who'd like to be heard in connection with the application of Shannon and O'Connell for property located at 25 Marlin Road in East Quogue? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is for property located at 25 Marlin Road in East Quogue? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this will be the time to let us know by raising your hand. Wow, lucked out. Okay, John, it's yours.
Thank you. Here's
Okay.
my copy of what I said, and here is that additional variance I referenced.
Okay. So,
What?
I move to close the hearing on this application, set it for written submissions on 10/6 with a decision on 10/19.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Ms. Curran?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Hold on, can you pass that to John for the file?
John for the file.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll be here on the beginning of October.
Janice, are those there for subdivision?
Not yet, not yet.
Rumors going or not?
Well, just waiting to hear, waiting.
Okay, we're moving on to item 12 on the agenda, which is holdover application 17 Bishop
hope so.
LLC, 17 Bishop Avenue, West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-358-1-21.
Lesser
All
goes
yours,
away.
Robert. Congratulations.
What, this one? Yeah, I don't know who's here on this one.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Go. Oh. We have anybody here in this? No.
That's kind of matters.
Okay.
We doing Bishop?
Yep,
Okay.
Yeah?
yep. Okay.
Someone online. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure. I think she's.
Someone left their candy. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Evening.
When we were last here, we were requested to undertake a few tasks, which we've done. And we put in back on September 5th, everything in writing, so the board had it before tonight's adjourn date. The task that we would undertake had to do with confirming elevations, which we've done with our architect, and Aaron Chichunian, who's our environmental consultant, to confirm the buffer between the properties in the form of landscaping. There was a question whether it was a thin hedge, a thick hedge, whether or not it provided a privacy buffer between the properties, between the neighbors and our property, subject to the variance. We've confirmed that. We've got some photos for you. And finally, we've confirmed the exact breadth of the variance we're looking for, which is essentially a height variance, pyramid variance, very small percentage. Our architects here as well. With respect to the height variance, I put in the statute before, earlier on, definition of height, the requirements of the pyramid law. And there was a question as to whether or not variance relief was even required if you're complying with FEMA. This is all being driven by FEMA, this entire application. The only reason that we're piercing the pyramid is because we have to comply with the base flood elevation, raise the house. We've changed the roof line in the process, and that results in the variance. The interesting thing about the statute, and I put it into the record last time we were here, is it seems to accept any application that is FEMA compliant, and at the same time pierces the pyramid or affects the height of the building up to a height of 40 feet. In this case, that's exactly what we're doing. Chris, the architect, and Aaron will tell you the exact amount of relief we need. But we want to keep that issue on the table because it might relieve this board of a lot of variance applications if you take a hard look at whether or not variance relief is required under these circumstances in any event. With that, I'd like to just hand it over to Aaron. We'll give you a brief presentation and address the issues you requested we addressed last time.
But Mike, just for clarification, you only need pyramid relief, you don't need, I mean, I know it's called pyramid height, but you don't need a height variance, you need a pyramid encroachment.
Correct.
Okay, just so
That's
the board
correct.
knows, it's,
We're not going above 32.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but it's under, just so, it's under the same section, the
no, I
height
know,
section of the
but,
code.
Okay.
but the board typically does not like to give a variance for height, although it well in a flood zone, this is for pyramid.
I got it. Okay.
Okay,
One thing.
yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Good evening.
Aaron Tertuni and First Coastal Corporation, West Hampton Beach, New York, on
Yeah.
behalf of the applicant.
And Aaron, did I
was sworn
previously
in.
swear you in?
I
You
was sworn in
recall?
and I remain sworn in.
If I swore you in previously, you're still sworn in.
Thanks for the opportunity to follow up from our previous meeting. You have a letter, sort of a letter report dated September 5th. I'll just walk you through that without reading every word on the page. There were 4 issues that we were asked to investigate. One was the north side hedge, the existing home elevation, the flooding and stormwater runoff, and the septic system. So as far as the north side hedge goes, I've included a couple of photographs where one of them, the first one, is looking directly down the property line between 17 and 19 Bishop, 19 being to the north. And you can see that there's a very robust hedge there. If you look at photos 2 and 3, this is taken from the street in front of 19 Bishop, and you can see that the hedge almost covers the entire garage in photo 2. And in photo 3, you can see that based upon the location of the windows of the house at 19, there's no way that they could even, see our house because they're only about 15 or 20 feet from the property line, and the hedge itself is almost that tall. As far as the home elevation goes, I've enclosed a copy of the elevation certificate and identified the first floor elevation, which is 5.8. And if you review that against the plans we've submitted, you'll see they're consistent. The next item had to do with flooding and stormwater runoff. If you look at figure 5 in the report, what you'll see is a photo from 17 Bishop looking towards 15 Bishop, which is to the south. You can see that there is a tremendous amount of screening vegetation, some of which is the hedge that divides the two, and other of which is vegetation, screening vegetation that's on the applicant's property. I know one of the board members brought up, because the hedge is on 15 Bishop, shouldn't we do some screening on our side? And the answer is it actually exists right now. And that, the next item had to do with stormwater runoff. And so what I did was I went to the Suffolk County Geographic Information System. I downloaded the aerial photos and the topos. They have 5 and 10 foot topo lines on there. And you can see that the 15 Bishop has a 10-foot contour that runs through the front yard, and 17 Bishop, the 5-foot contour runs through the center of the property. So clearly they're downhill. So any stormwater runoff is not gonna be generated from 17, it's gonna be generated from 15 on to 17, because 17 is downhill. And as we all know, water still flows downhill. And then the last photo, second to last photo, is a view from the street at 15 Bishop looking towards 17 Bishop, again looking at the screening issue. You can see that there's a very robust hedge, which at this point almost covers the peak of the roof at 17 Bishop. So as far as screening on the north and the south sides, there's quite a bit in place. I don't see how it actually could be improved. And therefore we had been requested to add some improvements. I just don't see how we can do it. There's not enough room on the north. There's only 2 feet between the garage and the property line, and it's taken up with hedge already. And on the south side, we have just very robust greenery. And then I guess the last photo was just a photo key, so you could see where all the different photos were coming from. But I believe that was what the board asked us to investigate, and happy to answer any questions.
Did you get a copy of the Conservation Board comments?
I did not.
All right, I'm gonna give you mine, because the board eventually, I'm sure, is gonna want to ask you about it. It says something about, you did have a letter of non-jurisdiction previously, but maybe some fill or something is gonna require, I don't know,
Well,
take a look at it.
okay.
and-
All right, I'll look at it and then come
Yeah.
back, but I can just
That's
tell you
fine.
this. We're not doing anything within 50 feet of the bulkhead, and that 50 feet is where their jurisdiction ends. Happy to look at this and make comments, but we're not in their jurisdiction.
And just what, for the record, what was the flood zone you're in again? AE what?
I gotta look that
I
one
know,
up.
I couldn't find the, it's usually on the building department denial sheet, but I couldn't find it.
It is a AE elevation 8.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions from members of the board of Mike or of Aram? No? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard, who's here in the boardroom in connection with the application of 17 Bishop LLC, Padraic Smith, for property located at 17 Bishop Avenue in West Hampton? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which again is for property located at 17 Bishop Avenue in West Hampton? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this is the time to let us know by raising your hand. Okay.
No, I'm sorry, my wife's in Scotland with her 82-year-old mother right now, and she logged on Zoom at like 5.
What is her name?
Megan
Ring or Megan Baracus.
Megan Ring or Megan Baracus? Kevin, is there somebody with either of those names that is on Zoom? No? She's joining now, okay.
She came when we adjourned it in.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
Can you hear me all right?
Can hear you just
Yes.
fine. Just want to ask, did I previously swear you in?
Yes.
You have.
Okay, very good, then you're just still sworn in.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, and also the rest of the board for hearing me yet again speak on this particular issue. I wanted to just point your attention to 2 letters that I've actually submitted to the zoning board since the July 20th meeting. One was dated on the 28th of July, and the other was dated September 18th. I too have submitted some photos. I live at 15 Bishop Avenue, just to remind you. What I have heard through this, and I appreciate the response, the board had asked the petitioner or the applicant to provide some photos and respond to some questions about hedging and screening, but in a sense, it was distracting from the fact that there are multiple variances that are being requested. One that's been overlooked and that I brought up at the end of last meeting and was not clear to me into the application process in the actual public hearing, is that they're looking for a side yard setback, which actually brings their home to the south side of our home on a very narrow lot, and it's being couched as a continuance, but the continuance actually expands their kitchen and also allows for a 2nd-story expansion. I wanted to also point to the fact that on the 18th, I submitted building plans. If you were to drive by our home, 15 Bishop right now, you would see it's a shell of a home. We're building a 2nd story, so all the references to hedging are out of place, because what's essentially happening is I'm building a 2nd-story bedroom and bathroom for my mother upstairs, and it will be bird's eye view from the 2nd story of the house at 17. So bringing their home closer to our home with personal living space as a variance to expand the footprint of their house as well as the 2nd story, adding square footage is not something I can support. I don't see any reason for it. There are additional reasons. They're taking opportunities in different aspects of their building plan to expand their square footage. So that's something that I think's been buried in this. I also submitted photos to show that the photos that were submitted by First Coastal on the 5th are all taken from angles that are not actually next to the home. So I can actually attest to the fact that I'm currently renting number 19, so I can watchdog my own renovation. And I can tell you that it's not about what you can see about a house. I think what I would argue in that case is that the actual building structure that number 19 was opposed to takes away all the sunlight, the southern sunlight. So there are a couple issues at play there. That's not my my battle to fight here, but I can actually attest to that. But my biggest issue is what I think is being minimized in this entire application, which is a significant amount of expansion of second floor and square footage to the south. Bishop, actually to the north, is about 7.5 feet from the property line. We do have a meaningful thick hedge line to cover our kitchen window currently right now, because that's the only thing that gives us privacy from what's already existing as the southern edge of the property or structure itself. They're looking to bring it 2 feet closer to us and then actually add a second story and then add the inlet. Understandably, that's their right because of what the code is today. So these are much bigger issues than screening. Pyramid lot in itself, height, whatever it may be. We had a complicated situation as well. We had this weird appendix of the kitchen to deal with. And the argument that First Fulton made in the last hearing was that it was to modernize the kitchen. Well, we modernized our kitchen and actually avoided the variance requirement for a pyramid law or any kind of changes to north or south setbacks. So I would just draw your attention to those 2 letters. I don't think there's a hardship here. There's no, I can't understand why it would be a consideration, quite honestly, to actually let them expand their home and give them a variance on side yard for the purposes that they presented.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mrs. Baracus, was the letter that you submitted on the 18th, was that under your own signature or under Mark T. Baracus?
My signature.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is there anyone else who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application? No one else on Zoom. If you want to comment, you just have to come up to the podium or to a microphone, okay?
I just want to be respectful.
No, you have to come up, okay? We have a recording system.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have to get you on the system,
Yes, sir.
okay? And I just have to swear you in, so if you can just state your name and address for the record, unless I previously swore you in.
You did
I
back
did.
in June, sir.
Okay, then you're still sworn in.
All right, so thank you, everyone from the board, for taking your time out to serve the town of Southampton and to be here tonight. I'm glad that, I hope that everyone got the letter from the Conservation Department. Candace indicated that she had forwarded my letter dated September 18th with my own signature on it to the board previously, not just today. I trust that you all have those and have reviewed those. Now, I too am against this side yard south expansion that they're, I'm a little, actually, can we clarify this? Because Mr. Walsh here got up and indicated that the only variance they're seeking is for a pyramid, a sky plane encroachment, but is there not another variance that is seeking a southward extension of their current kitchen?
A little over 6 feet, sir.
Okay.
It's written in there.
Okay, so that's part of, so when Mr. Walsh got up and said the only thing we're talking about.
I forget about what he said,
is-
but with the application's
Okay.
been advertised a little over 6 feet, and you have a little over 1,000 feet, which this board is minimal, which is granted and requested, just so we're
And
clear.
we're talking about the extension of the footprint on the south side of number
Correct.
17, sir, toward number 15.
32 is required, they're requesting 25.3, which is a
Okay.
little over 6 feet.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, Aaron talked about the stormwater management. He's right. Right now, it slopes down to their property. But the architectural plan still, and I FOIA'd, I think it was today I FOIA'd, or no, sometime this week I FOIA'd the application. And the most recent architectural plans still state, they have notated raised grade as required against the south facade of the house, which is not a quantifiable, so Aaron was saying, don't worry. And if I, in my heart of hearts, believed that they were gonna keep the grade or, just raise it to be level with ours, I'd sleep better at night. But there's a nebulous notation on the architectural plan still currently in ZBA file, which states raised grade as required. That kind of, how are we supposed to be confident that, they're not gonna jack up the grade and all of a sudden we're gonna get a runoff on our property? And also, anyway, that's all. I don't wanna take up too much of your time, because it's late, and everyone wants to go home to their families. But there are just some concerns, and both my wife and I are against the southward expansion of their kitchen. And we have some other concerns, but they're being addressed by the Conservation Department, and I trust that the board will take those into account, so.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay.
I just have a comment, Mr. Barauskas. I take exception to the last paragraph in your letter questioning one of our board members' appropriateness in sitting on the board for this. I have total confidence in every board member here tonight.
Okay.
Including one who's been appointed more recently than the board member that you pointed out there. So we have confidence in each other, and
I'm
this will be
happy
handled
to
properly.
hear that. It was simply a time, we're human, there's 24 hours in a day.
Mhm.
And your office is an islip, sir. And, no, meaning like, that's a lot to juggle. And my last.
I don't think we need to get into it.
Okay.
I think the statement was
It's not
made, and I
appropriate.
think that's sufficient.
It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And we stand by the statement that Mike just said.
Yes.
Well, that's fine.
I watched
us.
the July 20th, I wasn't here, I watched the July 20th online. I have no problem hearing this application, it's my application, I live in West Hampton.
Let's move on.
Grew up in West Hampton, so I'm not sure what your issue is.
I don't think it's.
Bob, you don't have to defend yourself.
Yeah, it really isn't.
Simply a time and energy issue, that's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who's ready to be heard? I don't think so. Okay, if not, Bob, it is yours.
Okay.
Karen?
Oh, Aaron,
Yeah.
yes, sorry.
He wants to talk about the elevation.
Okay.
Thank you. I've reviewed this Conservation Board memo. I think if you look at it, there's several salient points. The most important first one would be number 3, stormwater dry wells need to be installed. Yeah, we know that, and that's gonna be done as part of the building department permit. Number 4, questioning the accuracy of 2 different surveys by a New York State licensed surveyor. I just don't even know what to say about that. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Number 6, talking about that the excavation for backfilling in the foundation and the roof overhang will occur within 50 feet. Absolutely not. We are not gonna cross the 50-foot boundary. We understand it. We will respect it. Item number 7 says that on the plan presented by Mr. Jeffries, that there's a naturally vegetated wetlands, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer 50 feet from the bulkhead. That is an incorrect note. The fact of the matter is, that area isn't within their jurisdiction, and we propose absolutely no changes. It's a lawn now, it's gonna be a lawn after. That's all there is. We're not gonna change anything within the Conservation Board's jurisdiction. Goes on to say the plan needs to call for installation of a line trench staked in siltation barrier. Item number 8, yes, of course, that's gonna be in the building permit application. And I think to speak to Mr. Baracus' concern about the grade, that is also gonna be in the building permit application. That's the appropriate place for it. The building department understands the stormwater pollution prevention plan requirements, and they're gonna enforce them, and we're gonna abide by them. And that's really everything that was, in that Conservation Board. I think, quite frankly, supports what we're doing. As, to speak, to the extension of the desire to the south, we're actually asking for 2.7 feet more than we have right now, and we've given several reasons for that. But that's a reasonably moderate, I would say, variance request. And we certainly understand the Baracus' desire for privacy and, the expansion that they're doing to their home right now, which is gonna be lovely and gonna make the neighborhood better than it is. And certainly support that. But we think that in general and specific, that both the variances we're looking for, which are the pyramid variance and the area variance for the side yards, meet the 5-part test. And I think we gave that to you once before, but maybe we should just walk through it one more time.
Feel free. Briefly.
I
Thank
have to
you,
look on my phone because I
Chairman.
didn't bring the printout. The first item is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of an area variance. I would submit no. It's a community of single-family homes. We're going to have a single-family home. It's going to be of a similar size and 2 stories, just like many of the homes in the area. It is, in fact, the character of the neighborhood. The second one is whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. The answer is no. We have to comply with FEMA. We're doing an energy, a solar energy roof in order to comply with the very stringent HERS requirements of the town. And the only way we can expand our building to the south is to request a variance. Item number 3 is whether the proposed variance will have a significant adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The answer to that is no again. Is it a single-family home? It's going to be a single-family home. It's going to be of a similar size to other single-family homes in the area. Therefore, if they're not having an impact, we're not having an impact. And whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, and I would say no, this is not something we did without permission. This is something we're seeking permission to do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Okay, anything else?
We just request that you can have 5 days to respond to these letters that were put in, just so we have a clean record.
Yeah.
That's all, just a short period of time.
Well, you can have the
Well, you have written submissions.
We'll have the written sub-period up until October 6th.
October 6th,
For
okay,
anybody,
that's fine.
for anybody.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else, right? There's no one else?
I don't think there's anyone else.
Okay.
Nope.
This is mine. Let me just point out that I have no problem with it, but I'm gonna hold it open for written submissions until 10/6 with a decision on 10/19.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for your time.
All right, under reopened applications, number 14, Lee Skolnick, 50 Round Pond Lane in Sag Harbor, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-26-2-2.16.
This was,
Mr. Downs, how are you?
this is the application the board asked them to just come back, give you a quick update, and make sure we have everything on our file.
Yeah.
Because it's been languishing for a little bit.
Did you ever get a comment from the Conservation Board?
What do you mean?
Any kind of comments?
We have,
We did.
yeah, there's some, I think we have the permit, conditional,
Okay,
I think so, yeah.
all right, thank you.
Did you not receive them, Counselor? No.
Not yet. Okay, so basically, this is a request for a rear yard variance from 63.1 feet down to 44.6 feet. It's in a area that's zoned R20, but when the homes were all built in this subdivision, the zoning was R80. So we have a discrepancy now because of nobody can meet the R200 zone. I've looked throughout all the, I think the 12, 15 lots that are in the subdivision, and no one meets the R20, R200 zoning. They all meet the R80, which is what it was zoned for. So, I mean, what happened here was, when I came into town hall, I wanted to make sure I was gonna be procedurally correct, so I went to Marty Shea's office first, and he suggested that I go to the zoning board of appeals first before he would entertain it. He said, you can file it, but it's only gonna sit here until I hear from the zoning board of appeals. Subsequently, we went and decided it, and we were at the board, and then it went to the building department, and they requested a number of additions be made to the survey. They wanted some certain elevations to make sure you didn't need a pyramid variance, things of that nature. And that's pretty much where it ended up. And it was about a year ago that we were here.
Right.
Yep.
June 22.
Right.
But you have a conservation board permit?
Yes,
You do?
yeah.
Because I feel like when we had the hearing, that's what this board was waiting for. We were waiting to hear that you had a conservation board permit. actually, I mean, do we have a copy of it, Candace? I don't see it.
Yes.
We do.
We have a resolution, we don't have
Okay.
a copy of the permit.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
resolution.
excuse me,
We have the
there's a
resolution.
resolution,
Yeah,
not a
that's
permit.
what I mean, all right.
I have to go back to,
Yeah, yeah, no,
Mr.
we don't
Shea.
need a permit.
It
We need
was
the
issued
additional res-
December 22.
It was issued when?
December of 2022.
22.
All right.
So, is there anything else we're waiting for?
Not that I
Doesn't
know of.
sound like it.
Did you make the revisions on the survey that?
We did all the
Marjorie,
revisions that
Riley?
Marjorie requested, yes.
Okay,
And Lee made any changes to the drawings that were necessary.
okay.
All right, and so, and most recently too, because it looked like Marge was asking about the average natural grade, that's been made, Marge has those?
Yeah, she has the one I brought to stamped and sealed. Well, when did you submit those, was as of September 11th, I think it was her last email, I don't think she has those, okay, so.
All right,
But
they
does
need to be
Marge have
submitted.
those?
She has them electronically.
Okay,
I need a hard copy, so let me just have,
Okay.
one, I'll,
We'll leave you with the.
I'll take it, I'll take one copy.
well, I
Thank
have
you.
the folder,
What's that?
I have the folder, get it in the file.
Then she can
Okay,
have
but I
the-
mean, I'll just take it and,
Yeah, we'll stamp it.
all
He
right.
has two, so you can have one and she can have one.
There we go.
I don't even.
Wait, I want one too.
Anyone else that would like?
No, no, thank you.
All right.
Keith, you want
So
that?
assuming all of this is perfect, we can put it out, we can close it and put it down for decision at the next meeting.
Yes,
Which is, what night is that?
the October 6th. what is
October
it?
5th.
Fifth.
Right, next meeting is October
yeah.
5th. Yeah. Nope, nope.
So we're not gonna keep
You
it
don't wanna
open
come?
until the 6th
No,
for
it's-
written? We're gonna
Yeah,
do it the
this
5th?
was really
Okay.
just to update the board, because the request, there was, I don't think there was anybody here at the public hearing, I don't think there was any letters received in opposition, it was just this constant back and
Yeah,
forth.
I went back to review the hearing and it didn't
We were
Yeah.
getting
be an
tired
issue at
of seeing
all.
your name on the agenda crossed out.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry.
And I'm sure you'd like to move forward.
We would like to get the
Yes.
permit and proceed.
All right, so we're gonna have a decision on, well, whose is this?
This is Mike's.
Mike,
Right,
this is
so-
yours.
I'm sorry, can you do a written sub without a deadline?
Sure.
date? Only because Marjorie's gonna wanna respond, she's gonna wanna send a memo to the board
Yeah.
saying that everything is,
Okay,
addresses
so-
her comments.
So you wanna do written subs and
Just, I
then a
would say-
decision?
Yeah, I would just say written sub, just no date, cause she, she might have it in a couple of days, I'm not sure. I don't know what her schedule is as far as being in the office.
Determination,
Okay,
10:19?
so we'll.
Are we doing
no,
10:19 or
we're
we doing
gonna close-
10:05?
You can do 10-5.
We're gonna close
Okay.
this public hearing.
Yep.
There will be some written submissions prior to the decision on October 5th.
Second,
No, 5th.
Yeah, October 5th.
fifth.
Yes.
Seconding.
She seconded your
I'm
motion.
seconding your motion. Oh, that's what you were doing, oh, okay.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Ms. Kern,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio,
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good rest of your night.
Glad we're getting this resolved.
Yep. I forgot to ask if there's anyone from the public. I just want to make sure I closed it. Is there anyone on Zoom who's waiting to be heard in connection with this application for Skolnick for 50 Round Pond Lane in Sag Harbor? No one on Zoom. Okay, so we'll leave it closed. All right, and nobody in the audience. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Who wants to read it? Oh, hell.
I have, Ellen's off tonight. All right, so I have a decision in the matter of the application of John Timothy Otero for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-187-221. This application is for property located at 19 The Trail, Hampton Bays. Applicant requests variances for a proposed one-story addition and to allow a shed to remain on the premises within the required side yard once the addition is constructed. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1, for a proposed one-story addition to the existing dwelling on a non-conforming lot. Town Code 330-115D, continuance for a principal total side yard setback of 30 feet where 42.6 feet is existing. And 2, for an existing shed, Town Code 330-76D, placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts, and Town Code 330-83C, yards, for an existing shed that will now be located in the required side yard for the principal building as a result of the proposed addition. These variances are granted as shown on the survey of Frank Galuzzi, surveyor, last dated February 15, 2023, and the floor plans and elevations prepared by Thomas Winnis, R.A., dated February 23, 2023. Granted, the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard? Aye. Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Mr. Daly, I left the room. Chair votes aye. Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are closed
Close.
at 1:45.